Welcome. The basis for this presentation is AI generated, but I want to be clear, all the concepts and principles are mine.
Let's talk about something that can either fuel incredible success or, lead to total disaster. It's the engine of all learning, all growth, but so many of us just ignore it. We're talking about feedback, and we're going to break down how you can actually harness its power.
So let's start with a date that holds a really powerful and honestly a tragic lesson for all of us.
Just 73 seconds later, what was supposed to be this incredible moment of national pride, a real symbol of human ambition, it just turned into absolute horror.
The mission was over. But here's the thing. This wasn't just some random, tragic accident. It was a preventable tragedy. It was a catastrophic failure to listen.
This disaster is such a stark example of what some psychologists call outcome orientation. It's this idea of being so laser-focused on the goal, in this case, launching that shuttle on schedule, that you just tune out all the critical feedback. Engineers had been sounding the alarm. They warned about faulty O-rings, especially in the cold weather. But that feedback, it was completely ignored in the rush to hit that deadline.
And that tragedy really just hammers home this crucial point from the psychologist Carol Dweck. Feedback isn't just, some helpful advice you can take or leave. It is the engine that drives all progress. Without it, any system, and that'll include us people, we're basically just flying blind.
Okay, so what is this engine we call feedback? I mean, where did the idea even come from?
Well, the idea has this really cool history. It actually started out way back in the 1920s as a super technical term in engineering, talking about electrical circuits. Then, by the 40s, scientists started using it to talk about how any complex system, from an animal to a machine, keeps itself in balance. And then, boom, by the 60s, it had exploded into psychology and management. It was everywhere.
And this diagram, it just lays out the core idea so perfectly. It's a simple, really elegant loop. A system does something, that's the output. And then information about that output gets fed back into the system, becoming a new input. That's the magic right there. That's what allows it to adjust, to adapt, and to get better the next time around. Okay, to make this feel a little less abstract, let's use an analogy. Imagine you're on a journey, a really long hike. As you go, you're going to run into 3 totally different kinds of feedback signals.
All right, signal number 1. This is the most immediate kind of feedback, and it comes from right inside you. It's that constant chatter between your body and your mind. Think about it. It's your foot telling you, hey, a blister's starting down here. That's a signal to stop. Or it's that wave of frustration when you're slogging up a steep hill, and then that rush of pure joy when you finally hit the top. And it's also that little voice, your intuition, that just whispers, this path doesn't feel right. Okay, so the second type of signal comes from the world around you. Basically, everything that's not inside your own head. And what's so cool about this is how everything can become a source of feedback. The wind starts to pick up. That's feedback that a storm might be on its way. The trail gets super steep. That's feedback telling you to change your pace. Even the little stone markers on a trail are constantly giving you data about how far you've come and where you're going. And now for the final, and I'd argue maybe the most powerful type of feedback. This one isn't happening in the moment. It happens after it's all over, when you actually take the time to look back. Yeah, we're talking about reflection. It's when you journal about what happened, or you sit down and talk it through with a friend, or maybe you just sit quietly and think about what you learned. This is where you really connect the dots. This is how you turn an experience from the past into wisdom for the future. Okay, so recognizing all these signals is one thing. That's half the battle. But it's what you do with that information, how you choose to respond, that makes all the difference. That's where the real growth happens.
So let's say you get some feedback. Maybe it's internal. You suddenly realize, man, I'm exhausted. Or it could be external. Your phone's map shows you're way off course. The point is, what you're doing isn't getting you to your goal. Now what? What are your options? This table breaks down all the ways you could react, whether you're falling short of your goal or even doing better than you thought. But really, it all boils down to a few core choices. Are you going to change your behavior, change your goal, ditch the goal completely, or just pretend you never got the feedback in the first place?
And here's the kicker. Only 2 of those responses are actually productive. A lot of the time, our ego or just a fear of failure makes us want to ignore the feedback or just give up entirely. But that just leads to, well, nothing. You get stuck. The path to growth is to either push harder to meet your goal or, hey, if you're crushing it, maybe it's time to aim even higher.
Cheryl Strayed's journey in her book Wild is just a perfect real-world example of all this in action. I mean, she listened to that internal feedback when her body was literally breaking down. She took external feedback from another hiker who warned her about a dangerous part of the trail. And she used that reflexive feedback, all that journaling she did, to process her past and figure out a new way forward.
So, let's bring this all home. How can you practice this? How can you get better at actually using feedback in your own life?
Okay, this is going to sound a little counterintuitive, but stick with me. The best way to get better at using feedback is to get better at giving it. It's true. By learning how to give really helpful, constructive feedback to other people, you actually train yourself to be more open to receiving it. You learn what good feedback is supposed to look and feel like.
So here it is, your big takeaway for today. The next time you have to give someone feedback, don't just drop a comment and walk away. End with this question right here. Ask them. It completely changes the dynamic. It shifts everything away from judgment and puts the focus squarely on learning. And that ensures your feedback really does become an engine for their improvement and, believe it or not, for yours too.